It was a tough gig for the Chancellor, but I think she's taking a much bigger gamble than people realize. In her spring statement, which is only 3 months ago, less than that, the Chancellor said that you couldn't tax and borrow your way to prosperity and better public services. But that is exactly what she's doing. We had these huge tax increases last October, and the borrowing is enormous. So if you look at what the OBR said, we go back to March 2024, last Tory budget. The OBR said between then and the end of the decade, we'd borrow 320 billion. This year, in March, the OBR said it's now 520 billion. She's borrowing an extra 200 billion between now and the end of the decade at a time when the global bond markets are down on profligate governments, charging higher and higher yields. And John, we already pay the highest yields to get our debt away in the advanced market economy world. No one cares what the Tories are going to say at the moment, and that may be the case for a long time. Indeed, it could be the case forever, John. We could be at a watershed in a realignment of the right here. Reform has a number of things to say, but not all of them add up. But people are not voting for reform or say they would vote for reform because of what it stands for. They're voting for it because it's not Tory or Labour. It's as simple as that. It is an insurgent protest vote, and it's doing very well. And I think the level of I've never seen a government lose so much support so quickly. And it's not clear that anything the Chancellor had to say is going to change that. And if the Chancellor has to come back in October, as I think she will, with big tax rises because she can't borrow more, and the sums will not add up, if she's got to do that, then I think that's the end of her political career.
Veteran broadcaster Andrew Neil has issued a stark warning to Labour's shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves, calling her current economic strategy a gamble that could spell political disaster within months of taking office, particularly if it leads to major tax hikes in the autumn. Speaking on Times Radio, Neil didn't mince words. If the Chancellor has to come back in October with big tax rises, that's the end of her political career, he said, offering a chilling forecast for the woman seen as central to Labour's economic credibility. Reeves, who has positioned herself as a fiscally responsible alternative to the Conservatives, has promised massive investments in infrastructure, housing, and public services, while simultaneously pledging to keep a tight grip on spending. But critics like Neil are now questioning whether that balancing act is even remotely achievable without spiraling debt or politically toxic tax rises. Neil's warning comes as Labour continues to lead in the polls, but with mounting scrutiny over how exactly the party intends to fund its ambitious plans. This $39 billion pledge for social and affordable housing, unveiled this week, is just one part of a broader economic package that includes green energy investments, NAE's expansion, and infrastructure upgrades. Reeves insists these policies are fully costed, pointing to plans to close tax loopholes, tighten rules on non-doms, and raise revenue from windfall taxes. But Neil, and a growing number of economists, argue that these measures fall short of covering the bill. The reference to October is no accident. That's when the Chancellor, assuming Labour wins the general election, would deliver her first major fiscal statement outlining detailed revenue and spending plans. If growth projections fail to materialize or interest payments balloon, Reeves may be forced into an unenviable corner, raise taxes or abandon her pledges. Neil's analysis suggests the timing could be politically catastrophic. The honeymoon would barely be over, he noted, and she'd be standing at the dispatch box explaining why taxes are going up, despite everything Labour promised. Labour insiders say Reeves is banking on credibility, not charisma. She wants to be seen as a cautious steward of the public purse, not a radical reformer, but Neil's intervention underscores a deeper vulnerability. That caution, without realism, can backfire. The question now is whether Reeves will preemptively scale back her plans or walk into a political trap of her own making come October. The stakes are sky high, and as Neil put it bluntly, she may only get one shot In a political environment where expectations are high, budgets are tight, and the public is wary of broken promises, one wrong fiscal move could turn Labour's moment into a missed opportunity and send Rachel Reeves from Chancellery waiting to cautionary tale. And now we come to Labour MP Catherine Atkinson and Chair of Doge at Reform UK, Zia Yusuf, go back and forth over the impact of migration on housing demands in the UK.
Far too long when it came to house building, we've seen planning red tape absolutely prevent the housing that we need. And I'm really excited that when it comes to a bill, the single bill that's going to create the greatest growth to be forecast is the planning bill to cut the red tape to make sure that we're getting these built. But skills is a really, really important issue, which is why the investment in skills is absolutely necessary and a real step forward.
But what would you say about Zia's point then? Because if you're filling a bath full of water, but you've got your plug out, you're never going to have enough water, are you? If you're building all these houses, but yet you're constantly expanding your population beyond that, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
I think I've already set out that we've seen the latest figures, the biggest fall in net migration. So I think that for me is
but it was still about 600,000, and it's likely going to get revised up.
Absolutely nothing to do with why we've got the housing shortages that we have.
Of course it is.
The reason that we have the housing shortages that we have is because they haven't been being built.
So you don't think the demand for houses impacts the cost of housing?
This government is actually going to build the houses that we need, but we're also seeing the jobs that we need, so that people have got secure work, secure incomes to be able to build lives and families around. And the reason I've got a massive smile on my face this week is because we're seeing investment in small modular reactors, at which Rolls-Royce, based in Derby, has been selected as a British company. And this government is backing a British company which was able in competition to beat other companies, including 2 from America. And we're going to see clean, homegrown energy that we can rely upon, and that will create not just significant numbers of jobs, but when it comes to the reliance that we've seen on fossil fuels, this is a massive opportunity to be able to bring down bills, but be able to have secure energy. And we know that security of energy means a secure country.
Do you agree with that?
I'm genuinely flabbergasted at pretty much universally every Labour and Tory MP seem to believe that the British housing market is the only one in the world which is totally oblivious and unimpacted by demand. In terms of energy, look, let's talk. We need to scrap net zero. I've been advocating for Rolls-Royce SMRs for a very, very long time, and frankly, far more should be being invested in that. All this money being spent on things like solar. You don't need to be a climatologist to understand that solar makes a lot more sense in Nevada than it does in Kent. If people want to have solar panels on their own property, that's fine, but it should not be being subsidised by the British taxpayer. We should be investing far more in nuclear, partly also because, unlike the renewables, it is baseload capacity that works well with our grid. Well, so it doesn't go anywhere near far enough in making sure that these are proliferated. When Reform win, we are going to be investing extremely heavily in nuclear modular reactors.